Hi everyone, this is Mindy and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to take a background stamp and make a very subtle background for your cards. A lot of times we get background stamps, they're really great for techniques and bold designs, but sometimes maybe we just want to step it back just a little bit. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. I first want to walk you through some of the supplies that I will be using today, starting with this Sea Creatures die set. I'm going to be creating my own custom sentiment with this Luggage Tag Alphabet Die set, a sentiment from the Let's Celebrate stamp set, and then our main focus is the wave pattern background stamp. Those are all from Hero Arts. I also have a gel plate, which is going to be kind of the star of the show to create that subtle background. And then for inks, I have Pitch Black, Dandelion, Paradise, and Azalea. If you wanted brighter backgrounds, I would pick brighter colors. These are going to give us soft backgrounds. I also have a rubber brayer here. I'm going to be using the Concord & Ninth Turnabout Jig Sticky Mat. You're going to want some sheets of cardstock. I have a bunch cut to 5.5 by 8.5, some Scotch removable tape, and then I also have my handy reverse tweezers and a craft pick when I'm poking out my dies. For adhesive, I'm going to be using the Hero Arts liquid glue and a Gina K Designs dot runner. And as always, all of my supplies will be listed down below in the video description and on my blog as well. So I'm starting out with my gel plate. Now I have it placed on the door of my Misti and some white cardstock underneath just so you can see everything that I'm doing. And then I have off on the right-hand side just some scratch white copy paper. I'm starting with Dandelion ink and I'm stamping it down pretty much is what I'm doing, applying that ink to the gel press. The dandelion is in the center, the azalea is towards the bottom, and then up at the top, I'm using Paradise. I chose these colors in this specific order because I know when I go over it with my brayer, they are going to make a beautiful transition and color combination. So I'm taking my large brayer and I'm going to just gently go back and forth across that gel plate, a little bit down, a little bit up. And each time I went across it, I just lightly picked it up. I don't want to press hard because I don't want to leave marks with my brayer. Now I'm taking that wave pattern background and I'm literally stamping it onto the gel plate. You don't ever want to put dies on the gel plate because that will pierce it and cut it. Rubber stamps are great, clear stamps and stencils are great for this. So I stamped that down onto my inky gel plate, and then I took one of my pieces of cardstock and I placed that over all of that ink. So what my stamp essentially did was removed ink. Wherever there was a pattern on my background stamp, it removed ink. Now, because of my lighting and everything, this is really, really subtle. You can see it better in person, but it gives a very, very subtle design to your background. It's not going to overpower or take over your sentiment, things like that. Now, gel press can be really addicting, and I did have a few sheets cut out, so I am going to do one more just in case I can get a better result. I started this time with the Paradise at the top, the Dandelion in the center, and Azalea at the bottom. It's the same order. I just started inking it up in a different order. Once again, going over that with my rubber brayer, and I brayer off my excess ink over on that copy paper. I did clean my background stamp in between, so I wiped off any excess ink. So now I can bring it to the gel plate and stamp this onto the gel plate. So it's going to pick up that excess ink, and wherever it picked up the ink, it's going to leave white on my background. So I'm going to peel this up, place another piece of cardstock over the top, run my hand over that entire background, just pressing down really well, and then peel this up. Also keep in mind, you can do this with any background stamp that you have. So to clean this, I have this jumbo container of hand sanitizer. This is my husband's from the campsite. I can't find my small one. So I just placed a little bit of the hand sanitizer on my gel plate. I'm wiping it with a paper towel. Now, you don't want to go over it too much with your paper towel because as that hand sanitizer comes off, you're going to pill with the paper towel. So don't go over it too many times, just enough to clean off the ink. I also wiped down my rubber brayer, and then I'm putting my gel plate away in my storage tin. So I'm going to take this to my paper trimmer, just one of the backgrounds I created, and I'm trimming it down to 4 by 5¼ inches. I also trimmed out another piece of white cardstock that's going to be just a smidge smaller, and I'm attaching my background to that. So it's going to add a little bit of stability to my background. If you want to add more dimension, you can add foam tape or even more pieces of cardstock. Now I'm going to be using the Sea Creatures die set and the Luggage Tag Alphabet. I'm going to pick out the letters that are going to spell the word summer, and I'm going to die cut all of this from white cardstock. Now the turtle and that seaweed, I'm going to die cut twice, and then the letters to spell out the word summer, I'm die cutting each letter 3 times. So I'm going to layer these together to not only add that stability, but also add dimension because it can get pretty tricky trying to add foam tape to small areas like this. So I am using my reverse tweezers and some liquid glue, and I'm using a silicone mat here to just kind of catch any of my excess glue. It's a lot easier to clean my glue up off of this mat versus the glass surface. And then I just place something heavy on top of it to let that glue really set in and dry. Now, here is a tool that I really have been enjoying lately, lining up letters. So this is the Concord Ninth Turnabout Jig. It is a sticky mat, but it's not super sticky. It's just enough stick so that it's going to hold my letters in place while I line them up. Now, my sentiment is going to be in 2 parts. So I'm going to have this SUM on the top and then the MER on the bottom. So I'm using the grid lines on that sticky mat to line these up straight. And the Scotch tape that I'm going to be using to pick this up is a thin strip, so I can't pick it all up at once, which is fine. I just want to make sure that they're going to match up when I place them on front of my card. I didn't think of it at the time, but press and seal would have worked really great for this. I happen to have this Scotch removable tape. So what I do is I place it over the letters and I make sure I have some excess hanging on each end. Then just using my tweezers, I carefully pry it up from that sticky mat. It's not super stuck, so it comes up pretty easily. And I'm going to do the same thing with these bottom 3 letters. So I have that little bit of extra room, and that's going to help me when it goes to placing these on the front of my card. So now that I have those ready to go, I took some heavyweight cardstock and I'm going to score it at 4¼ And then I personally like to do side folding cards. So I'm going to fold along that score line and reinforce that fold with my bone folder. Then I can add the tape runner to the back of my panel and attach that to the front of my card base. Now I can start working on building up the scene for my card. Starting with that seaweed, I added liquid glue to that and placed that down towards the bottom left-hand corner. Place something heavy on it. And for my turtle, I'm adding little bits of foam tape just to the right-hand side of the turtle. And then I can remove the backing of that and place this down so it's the back half of my turtle is going to overlap that seaweed. Then for my sentiment, so I'm bringing in the bottom half of my word summer, so the MER, I'm just placing that there. I'm just using it for placement and a guide so I know exactly where I want this to be. Once I figured out where I want my top half to be, I can add dots of liquid glue to the back. And now this is where this tape is super handy. I'm using those 2 ends to help me guide exactly where this is going to go on the front of the card, and it helps with placement and also to make sure my margins are even on each side. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom half of the letter, add dots of liquid glue, and place this right underneath those top 3 letters. Then I'm just going to place something heavy on this and set this off on the side to work on my smaller sentiment. So for this, I actually went digging through my stash and I found the stamp set Let's Celebrate, and that Have a Beautiful is going to work really good with my word summer for the sentiment. There's also another sentiment on there that would work as well. So I placed that onto some white cardstock and picked that sentiment up with the door of my mini Misti. I'm inking this up in pitch black ink from Hero Arts. And then I'm going to take this over to my mini paper trimmer and trim this down into a thin strip. I also like to trim out a couple extra thin strip pieces from this because I'm going to layer this sentiment as well. So that's also another thing. You can use your foam squares or foam tape, but I like to just layer this with cardstock because I always end up having some small scraps. So I place that on there and then just trim this down with my scissors. And I have it layered about 3 times, I believe, altogether. Now I can come back to my card front. I removed that block and I'm going to use my tweezers to help pick up that removable tape and just peel this back so there's no tearing on my cardstock whatsoever, which is one of the reasons why I really love using it. Now, if you were crooked at first when you first placed your sentiment down, I would adjust that before placing something heavy on it and letting it sit. Then I just added liquid glue behind my smaller sentiment, and so the card reads, "Have a beautiful summer." Now that's going to finish off my card project. I'm bringing this closer. You can kind of see it on screen. I have pictures on my blog that you can look at, but it's really amazing in person on how beautiful and subtle and soft this is. If you have a gel plate and some background stamps, I highly suggest giving this a try. I do love using my gel plate. I have a few videos featuring the gel press in there, so I think it is a very handy tool to have and really does help stretch the use of your products. As I stated before, my supplies will be listed down below in the video description and over on my blog. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again real soon.